so nice that you guys have all joined us. It's lovely. From all over the world as well. It's absolutely amazing, really. Yeah. We've got our notes, so we're going to stay on track tonight. But we wanted to, first of all, start by welcoming you all to this community call, really. And just check, can everybody hear us? Are we speaking loudly enough for if it's okay? Great, awesome. So I think it'd be really nice, some of you, I think mostly everybody on here knows who we are, but just for anybody that doesn't, hi, I'm Kate and this is Sam. Hey. And we have a business together called Nature Philosophy Australia, and so that offers nature connection and transformational nature-based programs, lots of different styles. But we've been doing that work for 15 years.
Yeah, 15 years.
And really, I think at the heart of why we're so committed to it is what we're going to talk about tonight, which is how on earth can all of us individually and then collectively and in a powerful way deal with the despair that can get triggered in the face of the environmental crisis and the global transformation that seems to be happening through that environmental crisis right now. So it's a very important topic, and I think for a lot of members in our community, we've had a lot of people approach us and just say that they're really struggling with the intensity of the emotional reaction that they're feeling in life in the face of what can sometimes feel like a barrage of social media and sort of mainstream media information about just the negative, the constant negative story about what's going on. And there really is a negative story to tell as well. Yeah,
and I think we're more exposed to it these days more than ever. I think bad stuff's been going on for a long time, but just the way that media works these days and the way that media has become very global. We're aware of what's happening in the Amazon. We're aware of what's happening in Bangladesh. We're aware of what's happening in WA. And it just brings it so much closer to us. And then we're on Facebook daily, most of us, and we're seeing that day after day. So not only is there a lot of stuff happening, but I think we've become acutely aware of it. And I think for communities like ours that are very interested in awareness and becoming more sensitive to their own emotional bodies and more aware of what's going on around them, that awareness and sensitivity can become a double-edged sword, in the sense that we feel more. And so that becomes very difficult to deal with. So a big part of tonight is really offering some skills and techniques and our offering in terms of how to deal with this and respond to it in good ways.
Absolutely, and we'll try to be succinct. We've worked on today being quite succinct in that, because this is a huge topic, but I feel like what we need to do is personalize it. And I think we have communicated a little bit about this to our community, about how to turn the crisis and how to turn this global transformation that's going on through crisis into your own personal transformation, and how to link the collective global earth-based crisis into the life that you're living. And so we're going to explore that tonight, and that's going to be our focus, is how to empower you in the face of the crisis. And we feel like that's really the only real, true, grounded response any of us can take, because otherwise we're stuck in victimhood and we're stuck in the freeze and flight and fight responses that can come when our very survival and humanity's survival seems to be at stake, which is a very, very real thing as well. That knife edge that Sam's talking about, I think it is very much a crunch time for us globally in terms of how humans are showing up with respect to our relationship to the earth. So that'll be our overarching focus, but we'll offer we've got three philosophies, which are hopefully frameworks that will help each of you to really, deepen that understanding for yourself in your own life and develop your own unique wisdom around how to really activate yourself as a change agent and someone who can feel powerful in the face of the crisis, And we're also just reminders, really, probably for a lot of you, but maybe some of it will be new content, but 3 of the most powerful body-based techniques that we've used ourselves just to stay grounded. We've done a good job ourselves of feeling like we're staying on point with our spiritual task in the world. And so in the face of these waves of just what can be just, never-ending sense of there being a despair that gets triggered in terms of the way humans are interacting with the earth, these are things that have really helped us to ground us and keep us focused and keep us feeling purposeful and powerful. So we'll share those with you at the end. We will also break. We're not just going to talk at you guys. We're going to break and have a chance for everybody to have a group discussion. And we have about an hour and a half, 2 hours for the call tonight. And so feel free to stay for as much of that call that you can be here for. We would love it if you could stay for the whole thing and join in the discussion so we can have an active discussion as well. And as we mentioned before, whatever it is we're talking about, there's actually going to be a lot of other people listening. And so I feel like everybody that's here has a powerful message to share as we all work it out together as well. So
that's the whole focus of this call. It's a community call. So we're a community, a little community, but there's a bigger community that this call will reach as well and hopefully benefit. So that's good to keep in mind. And again, if you don't want to be featured on that recording, because this recording will go to you guys, but also to other people, just maybe stay silent. Don't say anything if you don't want to, but your voice is really valuable as a part of the community. And I'd encourage you to speak up if you feel called to.
We've got the chat box open, Tom.
Oh, there we go.
The chat box is open.
It's active.
We're not super techie, but if we see somebody, if someone's talking and there's like a burning comment that you have and or a question, you can put that in and we'll keep tabs on that and see if we can't add that to the discussion as well. And that's a really great way to also, include yourself in the process as well. So just know that that's happening. That's new for us.
Yeah.
First of all, before we start, we just wanted everybody as well just to stop together and just pause and take a moment just to acknowledge the land that everybody is sitting on. And it's just a really nice thing we like to do. We want to acknowledge the country that we're sitting on. We're sitting on Gumbaynggirr country, which is beautiful, stunning country, which has been cared for so many thousands of years by such an advanced Indigenous culture. And we have the gift of being able to be on this land. But each of you where you are now will also be connected to country and just blessed to be on the land that you're on. So we want to recognize the country you're on as well. And it's just a nice thing to do. If we can all just close our eyes just for a couple of minutes and just breathe and just come into your body. And just allow yourself to start to slow your breathing down and take some deep belly breaths and just really feel yourself as you're breathing deeply into your belly, just landing in the moment and just allowing your mind and all the busyness of the day and all of the hectic life that we're all living just to be away and just washing away, like flowing away like a river, and just bringing your awareness back to your breath and just sensing your body and just sensing you have a head, arms, your torso, just bringing your awareness to your back, your legs and your feet. And just feeling your entire body now as you move that breath deeply through your belly, up into your chest and out of your mouth, your nose. And bringing that sacred ocean of air back into your body. And now just allowing your body to reach out, your feet that are planted on the ground, and your body to reach out to the land around you that's holding you. And just feel your connection to that country and feel its connection to you flowing back into your body. And just allow your breath to continue to deeply move from your belly up and out into the air and connecting you back in again to your body. And just allow the country that you're on, its presence to hold you, and just recognizing that each of you are sitting on sacred ground. And just from that place of gratitude and blessing, just when you're ready to come back together into the call, you can just gently open your eyes and we can move forward.
Feels good.
It's nice just to stop.
It's good to stop.
Even though we're on a digital realm, we're all organic humans that can feel connected to each other and to the land that we're on, and it's just really nice to ground. So yeah,
we are connected regardless of whether we're connected via Zoom or not. We're still connected, so that's a nice thought. Where to start?
Well, validate.
Validate. So we totally really resonate with this concept of emotional or environmental, really, crisis and despair. We've been working hard for the last 15 years doing programs around nature connection, and lots of people have come our way, and lots of people with similar thoughts and feelings about what's going on. So this has really been our bread and butter for many years in terms of hearing the narrative of our community around what's going on, and we've had our personal experiences around that too. And I know for myself, I have been gripped by different responses to this crisis at different times, and the crisis hasn't been happening for a week, it's been going for a long time. We could debate when it started, but we can all just assume now that it's been going on for a long time, where we have a dominant paradigm of destruction of earth and resources for our lifestyles, rather than a sense of caring for the earth and nurturing the planet and ourselves. And so I felt many experiences of anger at the system that creates it, at the corporate entities that do the damage to the land and to people. I've also felt deep gut-wrenching despair when I was down in Tasmania and I drove through this old-growth forest that had been clear-felled and burnt, and struggled not to just buckle up and cry when I felt that destruction in my own body. And so we can look in any direction we look right now, we can see that type of destruction and despair that comes from it. And definitely recently it's been a hot topic of discussion, so it's been really present in everyone's consciousness. Greta Thunberg and all her work that she's been doing. Locally, we've had lots of bushfires, and we're currently in a big drought on the east coast of Australia, where it's usually quite wet where we are. It hasn't rained for a long time, and everything's just really crispy. And like I said, bushfires locally, but also in the Amazon. So there's been this whole cascade of things recently that it's triggered a real hot button topic of what's going on, and a sense of crisis and urgency and emergency. So we're really fully aware of what's happening now, but we also have been along the way, year after year, been aware of this very same issue, and people's very valid reactions to what seems like something that's out of their control. I think also what adds to this sense of crisis and despair is that the leaders that are in charge of directing our countries and our local populations don't seem to be aligned with looking after the environment or giving it any genuine effort or any genuine attempt to look after it. And if anything, they seem so heavily invested in those agents of destruction, like corporate entities, mining companies, that they're not even heading in our direction. They're heading in a completely opposite direction, which I feel like for people like us, it causes an extra sense of despair around just a lack of control or any ability to make it different. And so I just wanted to start with that and say we really get it, and we feel it ourselves as well.
Yeah, and the crisis is real, and the despair is real, and sometimes it can trigger into, just like what Sam was saying, these overwhelming waves of body-based fear and helplessness and hopelessness, and it can be really really overwhelming. Like, it's the sort of stuff that's been keeping people up at night, and triggering a lot of grave concern, not just for humanity, but also for the future survival of the health of the planet. And so I guess we wanted to just start by validating that this is real. And there's so many people out there trying to still debate, well, what's it all from, and why is the climate so crazy, and you know, who's causing what? And we feel like that is such a useless approach. In a sense, at this point, it almost doesn't really matter. The reality is it's happening, and everybody is waking up to the fact it's happening. And there's a lot of panic and fear in that, because suddenly people who were once sleeping are starting to wake up and panic. And so we really want to address that panic and address that sense of helplessness and hopelessness tonight, so that there can be something different arising out of this. So we really feel like we're actually in a fundamental time of global transformation. And when we look at the environmental crisis from a transformational standpoint, then suddenly something else starts to come forward. A different emotional and spiritual and direct action strategy can actually start to be formulating within our own being, within our own consciousness, where we can see what's happening now from a completely different perspective. And so we'll work through it. What did we call it? The meaning in the madness.
Yeah, that was the first. Like, we had 3 philosophies that are helpful in terms of responding to or dealing with crisis, or even understanding it too. Yeah. And one is that there's some meaning in the madness. And the example that I was thinking of in my head before we started the call was around someone that's just bumbling along in life, and they've had perfect health up until now, and but they haven't been looking after themselves, maybe drinking too much, eating crappy food, whatever, staying up too late in front of a computer, and their lifestyle has not been supporting their health. And then they end up getting sick. They might get a disease or some ailment that reflects back to them that there's something wrong. And so they need to have a look at what they've been doing. They need to look at their diet. They need to look at their lifestyle. And they're almost forced to kind of wake up to what's going on in their body and change their habits and recover their health. So eat good food, get good sleep, etc. And in a lot of ways, it's very analogous to this environmental thing, like a lot of people, not us on this call, but a lot of people are still bumbling along through life. Not many, I don't think, on the planet anymore with what's going on, but are still moving along, yet to wake up to what's happening in their own body or in the body of the earth. But there is a function of this sort of crisis that does agitate someone to wake up and have a look at what's not working about what we're doing, and when were we healthy, and how do we get back to that. And so I think just taking some heart from the fact that there is some meaning to the madness in terms of the nature of crisis and how it leads to transformation, and how crisis can actually be fuel for transformation itself.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, think about it in your own life. How often have you managed to make fundamental changes to the way you feel and think and act in life based off everything going smoothly? It doesn't happen in our lives. The majority of the time, when a human makes big changes in their life, it's because there's been some form of crisis, whether it's body-based, like the health example that Sam's given, or whether it's external crisis that then they becomes their own because we have to deal with it. That's often the trigger. It's the agitation, it's the wounding, if you will, that then becomes, if you can choose this, if you have the capacity to choose it, you can create from that wounding, from that crisis, fuel for transformation. And when we say transformation, we mean growth, we mean awakening, we mean coming into contact with greater and greater truth, which would mean that you have a more regenerative system in your own self-care, in your own life, and how you connect with external environments and other people. It means sustainability, and it means coming into a greater sense of harmony and balance and wisdom. So, so it's an important point, and it's a philosophy, it's a core philosophy that we work with. Our version of direct action in the work that we do has been, because we've tried a lot of environmental direct action and we've hit concrete wall after concrete wall. And it is just so, can feel so debilitating and can really trigger us into feeling like we're just victims in the system that we're in. But where we have found the greatest power is in helping ourselves and also other people see how they can turn the crisis that's happening in their lives and in the communities that they're in into a powerful transformative process. And so just that principle alone, I think, is something that was really, really powerful for us. And we would love to invite each of you just to think about that. And really, it's a reframe. Are we really in an environmental crisis, or is the environmental crisis a necessary component of the consciousness in the world? So the people in the world waking up to the absolute importance of caring for the earth and living in good relationship and right relationship, not just with each other, but with the very systems that are the lifeblood of our bodies, our souls, and our greater communities. So that's one of our questions. Oh, there's another. Hello. Wow. Oh, that's great. So that's our first philosophy, and we just want you guys to stick with us, because we're going to do the next two, and then we're going to break open and have a hopefully a robust discussion about all of this. So that moves on to, are you doing
the second one? Yeah, I'll do the second one. Yeah. So it's one we've mentioned before quite a lot of times, and we used to do this on every program we ran. And there's actually two concepts in this second one, but the first one is the caretaker principle. And this is just the most common sense principle that you'll ever hear in your life, but it's really interesting that in all of my study doing finance and economics and Kate's business degree, no one mentions this concept at all. Not even, they don't refer to it as the caretaker principle. They don't even mention it at all, you know, so it doesn't exist. But essentially we learnt it from our time in America studying with Tom Brown Jr. And basically it is a principle that, that encourages or sets a bar for you to leave the earth stronger than you found it. And so very simple. So if you go camping in a spot and you've had a great time over the weekend and you're about to leave, you actually maybe not only pick up your own rubbish, but pick up the other rubbish that's around too, and therefore leave that area in better state than when you actually arrived. The other example, the great one, is in a very tangled forest, where maybe a regrowth forest where there's a lot of trees, maybe too many trees all competing for the same sunlight, the same nutrient, the same water, and they're choking each other out. And so without intervention, that forest will really struggle to get established. But just with careful intervention and with the right eyes to see the landscape and understand it, you could actually remove a couple of trees and leave the greater whole stronger than you found it. And so that's how a lot of Indigenous populations functioned, on this caretaker principle. And anything that fell outside of that, they disregarded. because what it was doing was damaging the earth. And I don't think that we need to damage the earth to use resources. I think we can use resources just in more clever ways that actually align with this sense of leaving the land stronger than you found it. So that's the caretaker principle.
Absolutely. And, you know, I've also heard with Indigenous communities all around the world, there was always that sense as well that in this principle, that when the Earth's resources were not abundant enough to sustain the level of population that was existing in their tribes, that they would consciously actually look to reduce the level of population so that they were always in harmony with their ability to be on the land in a regenerative and sustainable way. And so these are fundamental principles that they seem so simple, but you know, could you imagine like every mining company in Australia actually being actually enforced, which is probably what would have to happen, or God forbid, actually willingly doing this, but genuinely leaving any environmental place that they have, you know, used for mining stronger than they found it. They'd have to probably have $1 billion cut in their profits. And the reality is that their greed and their sense of their own needs being greater than the environment just won't allow for that. And it's a lot more complex than that as well, of course. But the caretaker principle is a powerful principle, and it closely aligns with this very global Indigenous principle of thinking of many generations into the future. So making decisions now, each of you, each of us, all of us making decisions now, thinking about our children's children's children. And of course, in North America, they had a principle of 7 generations into the future. But our adopted family members up in northeast Arnhem Land, so our Yulngu family up north, all the elders and all of the younger people who are, you know, junior elders, I guess you could say, when they talk about their future, they're constantly talking about why they're doing things the way they are so they can make the children stronger. And they never forget about the welfare of the future generations. And that's probably partly why Greta Thunberg's so fucking pissed off, is she's been forgotten. And of course, she's just well, not just, but she's a symbol of a whole group of young people in the world who are way awake and feeling like the older people who are meant to be the caretakers, who are meant to be using that caretaker principle, are not doing the job that they're meant to be doing. And she's pissed off because everybody else, all the other students, are pissed off as well. And they have every right to be. So it's interesting how such an ancient Indigenous principle of sustainability is actually, I think we can see that in the modern day, reseeding itself and coming back up through all the climate action that the young people are actually bringing forward, while the older people are lagging in their economic Western model still. It's just really, really interesting. And it's a great principle to think about if you have a business, if you know, you have programs that you're offering, or even in terms of your own choices of how you interact with the land, how you interact with other businesses, you know, to think about, are they actually doing this? And if they are, and if you can do it in some way, it's a very powerful regenerative thing.
I'd love to see that 7 generations principle adopted in our political system. I'd love to see what it would mean in terms of the ripple effects of something like that. It would be quite positive, I think.
I agree. Yep.
So number 3.
Well, number 3 is a fancy flow chart.
Yeah.
Hang on a sec though. I've got to work out how to get you guys and this chart connected, but it is all possible. I will screen share down here, share. Here we go. Look at this fancy slide. Amazing. Hang on. No, wait. I've got to go like this. Got to go like that. Turn it into a thing. There we go. Okay, and now we'll be able to see everybody still. Okay, can everybody see that? Thumbs up.
Yeah.
So we were really trying to think, how can we put all of this together into this idea of making it as clear as possible how your own personal transformation, how your own process of awakening in life and becoming more and more powerful in your own life is connected to the nature of transformation and the crisis that we're in and the despair we feel around the environment. And so this is how we've decided to do it. So this is all about the nature of transformation and your activation as a change agent, because we have really experienced in our own life that the most powerful way we have ever found to really combat the despair and to really combat this deep level of victimhood that can be triggered when we feel so hopeless and helpless in the face of this environmental crisis is to activate ourselves from a soul level perspective to become a change agent in the world and to become an important piece in the solution to what's happening. So here we go, and we've made our own model with the 4 directions, because when we were thinking about it, that's sort of just what popped up. And you know, we don't work with a European northern inspired 4 directions model, but we do work with the directions. The directions are very powerful forces globally in everybody's lives, and they show up in Indigenous culture in a very different way from North American inspired principles, but they show up here as well in a quite a powerful way. And so this has been very much an inspiration for this. So here we go. Here's the basic of it. So we're going to start in a certain direction, and we're going to start in the West. So the West is crisis and transformation. If you think about the West is all about the time of the day where the sun is setting and darkness is taking over from the light. And it's typically a time for us, when we think of the West, we think of endings. We think of times in our life where we have our hand forced often to, and often through crisis, to actually let go and allow parts of who we are and parts of the life that we're living to be transformed and to be let go of. And so I think this is it's a critical part of the story of what it is, to allow yourself to think, well, how can I actually become an active change agent in the story that's unfolding now? And so first of all, recognizing your relationship to this crisis, and then your relationship to the possibility of how it's asking you as a person, asking you as a human to actually transform the life that you're living. So that might mean, for example, beginning to actually step up in terms of, for some people, it's, you know, offering programs or offering their gifts into the world, or just becoming a more vocal person in their community around what they believe needs to happen that's true and right. And so dropping away from hiding or holding back. That's a good example anyway. Did you want to say anything about the West? Okay. So the next aspect of really activating to become a powerful change agent is really found in the North. And there's a powerful relationship between this idea of if you feel like this crisis is really fuel for your own personal transformation and the transformation of the collective community, collective global community, then you'll have a very different capacity when you head into the North to be responding with action. And so the North, when you think about the North, it's that hot, driving sun. You know, the North is summertime, and there's that intense heat that comes from the sun, and it really drives growth and it drives energy. It's almost like that powerful masculine polarity that the sun can represent. And so when we're actually able to use this crisis as fuel, that feeds into our ability to have a sense of having enough power in our own bodies to say, well, what sort of action do I need to take and no longer be passive, but what sort of action do I need to take that's going to drive this into a greater sense of action and change and personal power? So the North is a powerful component in that. And that also connects into the power of the East. So meaning this journey of personal awakening. You know, the East is very much about having an understanding of your own personal story, your own material that you're carrying that would allow this crisis to be something that can hold you in a sense of victimhood, helplessness, and powerlessness. And learning more about what parts of who you are need to awaken, what parts of your own personal power need to birth, can be found in the East. And so the East is that sense of the, you know, the dawn of the new day. And in a lot of ways, I think that is really where we are. We're having the crisis collectively and globally in the West to do with our relationship, our fundamental human relationship with the earth. And we're all now being driven by that crisis, whether we like it or not, into the North. And we're being driven to ask, well, how are we going to act? Are we going to stay passive? Are we going to just let this crisis unfold into a chaotic destruction? Or are we somehow collectively going to get on the edge of that wave of that transformational process and adapt and act in ways that are powerful so that we can awaken in the East new possibilities, new pathways, new powers in terms of how we can actually live in right relationship with the earth and birth a new culture. And hopefully what we're doing, if we're doing this consciously and we're working with the transformational qualities that we find in this, we're actually going to be able to birth a new culture that has, I guess, that has the connection to earth as a critical part of everything that we do, and sustainability is a critical part. And of course, we can't forget the South. And I think that, you know, when we're at that place of waking up, when we're waking up, we don't just wake up and then go, oh, I've got it all sorted. I know, you know, me as an individual, I've got it all organized. We're driven when we wake up in the East into the South, which is a time in Australia where, you know, the South for Australians is very much about silence, cold, strengthening. And for us, we've found the South to really represent, as we go into winter and there's the retraction of energy from growth down into the roots, into the soil of the earth, a sense of personal vision, that sense of needing to clarify and come into a deeper understanding through connecting to silence and connecting to the silence found in the natural world, to the truth from your soul level of why you're really here and what is your true spiritual task. And then, of course, once we understand that, we can come back around into the West and into that sense of that which needs to pass away and that which needs to be transformed with greater clarity and with a clearer understanding of how it is we need to act in alignment to our own personal rightness. And then we respond again and the journey just continues. And it is very much like a spiral, I believe. And this is really what we're talking about, of fundamental pathways and movements, if you will, within your own consciousness, where you can become activated as a powerful change agent. And to be honest, completely honest with each of you, that is the most powerful pathway we've ever found to be able to effectively deal with environmental crisis and despair. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's the easiest pathway, and I'm certainly not saying that it would be, you know, without much challenge and a lot of ask in terms of your own personal capacity to step up into a more powerful version of yourself. But I do believe that from our experience, it's really been the only effective tool that we've really come across that's fully effective. Does that, you?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a lot of explaining. It's a diagram.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that's new and unique in that sort of approach is that linking that transformation of the earth, like there's a bigger picture going on with the earth itself too. If you believe that the earth is conscious and it's a living entity, a living being, that what is going on right now, if there's a huge amount of change unfolding, there's a huge amount of transformation happening. And I think what this model represents is that also relates to our own personal transformation, our own crisis or crises that we experience. And the two are not separate, but we're both like together riding a wave of transformation. And the opportunity here is to break through into a different paradigm, which Kate spoke about in the beginning, the potential of right relationship with each other and the earth and looking after it and coming into something that's new and more positive than what's going on right now.
Absolutely. And we didn't do this sun-wise, but we just did it in the direction that felt like actually related to what seems to happen in a body-based way for humans when they are so challenged. And there's a lot of us right now, we can't let it go. The earth is consistently showing us more and more signs that we can't just let it go. We all have to, we're being pushed, I think, in a sense, to actually change the way collectively we're living on the earth. And that's what needs to happen. And so is it really a crisis, or is it actually happening for a reason, because that's the only way that people will actually make the changes that need to happen? And the more of us who are speaking about positive ways to adapt, and the more of us who are stepping up as powerful change agents in that, then we can actually lead that transformation forward into not destruction and not more of the same story, but just happening in a more amplified way, but genuine pathways for positive action. And I do feel you have to stay positive, and that's like a discipline almost as well, I think, to actually have a positive approach to what's happening.
What about opening it up for
definitely we've done more than enough
reactions,
talking.
Questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody wants to unmute and make a comment, or just share how you're going with, with all of this. What have I done? Stop share. There we go. I might stop share. We can put that back up again if anybody wants to see it. But yeah, would anyone like to comment or ask questions or communicate something? And particularly if there's anything that you're actually struggling with and would like to be witnessed around. Come on now.
Well, it's pretty timely for me because I'm feeling like I'm about to explode and feeling pretty full of despair and overwhelm at the state of the world. So this is pretty timely. So I'm interested.
Great. Yeah, and I think it can feel like an intervention in a sense. And sometimes I do think we need interventions that can help us to reframe something that has that much intensity, body-based intensity, and that explosive quality into fuel for your own personal power to grow. And that's the tricky thing, but the possibility on offer.
And really important, Tom, too, because what can happen, and I know this has happened for me, because I feel those feelings too at times, and if I'm not able to have strategies or a framework, and these are sort of created frameworks that we're talking about, and we're choosing certain strategies to use. They're not God-given or anything like that, but if we just stay in the emotional component of that, we're sort of debilitated, and our work goes unmanifest in a way in terms of doing something about it. I mean, I know you're a powerful and very active campaigner in lots of different ways, but I think what can happen with all of us is that if we don't have strategies to deal with that, we can be hampered in the true personal power that's available to move forward and respond to this crisis and actually use it as, like we were talking about, fuel for our own transformation, but be a part of the greater transformation too.
Mm. I also feel, and we've experienced this in our personal business in terms of how we communicate. We're communicating now to more and more people from a broader and broader audience. And when and if we communicate from despair and from powerlessness and from that place of I'm about to fucking explode, and it's all too big, then it's very difficult for other people to pick that message up and run with it in a way where they feel that there's a positivity in it for them. And so a part of what we have consciously decided to do is, yes, we feel all ranges of reactions to the environmental crisis right now. And particularly, I'm just going to mute someone, hang on. And particularly, I can just sometimes just be flabbergasted and just so confused by how there's still so many people out there farming with so many chemicals and running it into the creeks, and the fish are dying and the water's not there, and still there's no sense that anyone's doing anything. But to approach somebody to change from a place of negativity within our own selves often falls flat on other people. But when we can approach from a place where we feel empowered about the voice that we have, and we feel like the work we're doing is growing our own personal power, then we have a different power to offer other people as well. And so I really feel that it matters that we make this reframe within ourselves in order for a positive voice to then be handed over to other people. And it'll be easier for other people to take up on it, particularly if they've been unconscious for a long period of time. And probably when they wake up, they go, oh, and they don't feel good about themselves. You know, that they often actually feel pretty down about themselves and down about the way things have been happening. And then if we rock up and we go, well, that's right, you should be ashamed of yourself and everything is shit and now it's time for you to do it the right way, then that's a really, really different approach to actually recognizing that that's maybe how we were however many years ago, when we didn't know, and that our job, your vision, is to be mature enough in this space to recognize the crisis needs to be there so they can wake up. And then you need to be there so when they do wake up, they have somebody there that can help them and mentor them to understand a way forward that has wisdom and that is earth connected. And it's a different way of looking at it.
I agree with all that. And I feel like I've been doing a bit of the North active response, but now it's really time for me, and I have pulled back. I'm not doing any activism, out there activism at the moment. It's time for me to do some work in the East.
Yes.
Because I really need to reconnect with some positive vision and do some personal work on myself, as you've been describing, because I totally agree. If you're trying to push people from a place of despair, it's unlikely to be effective. And people will run a mile. They don't want part of that. Yeah, life's hard enough. But yeah, you spoke it well.
Yeah, it is so true that that's the bitter pill to swallow, that all of the work is to be done in the East, like for all of us. And the isness of what is out there is just is. Like there's no, we can wish it different. We can try and bang down politicians' doors. We can do lots of protesting on the street, but the true transformation that's accessed is in the East. But it's just hard for us to hear it, and some people don't want to hear it. And so, anyway, I respect your words, Tom, and where you're at. I really hear you.
Can you read that?
Yeah.
I also just wanted to invite everyone to think about that when and in the manner in which you're able to become an active change agent in the world, which is bringing a positive message despite the crisis and despite the despair, with all of your humanness, then it's not actually then just about you. And yes, you have to do your own personal work to get there. But what happens is that you will then become a beacon of light, which will attract other people towards the vision that you have. And people will start to support that, move towards you. And you literally grow, as we have seen with the nature philosophy work we do, grow a huge community of people who feel aligned with what you're doing. And then that inspires them and gives them the strength and the support and the community feel and the tribal feel to actually then have the power in their own life to make the commitment to do the work in the east, to dive into the silence in the south and actually clarify their spiritual task that is unique to you, and then acknowledge that that means there are things in the west that need to die, that need to pass away in order for this new purpose and this new power to birth, and then to put that in the north in direct action and just do it. And then that of course feeds back into the east and the personal work, and it never ends. But it's a great way to actually look at it and to harness that sense of momentum to get on the train of actually doing that. So yeah,
totally. Does everyone get that question? Do they all get that in their box? Or?
I don't know. Do you want to just read it out?
Yeah.
Sam's going to read it out.
From Louisa. Yeah, my microphone is broken.
Louisa.
But she likes the way Paul Hawken reframes this climate crisis as this is not happening to us, but for us.
That's nice.
As I'm sure you know, his book Project Drawdown has mapped and modelled the top 80 solutions to reverse climate change. Many of these can be done at a personal level. This really helped me to find areas where I could focus on that would have the most impact. Great.
Yep, that's a great point.
Yeah, and then from Tanya, weirdly, a lot of despair in Extinction Rebellion seems to be broadly engaging people. Yeah, absolutely. Into the drama vortex or whirlpool of drama, maybe, that we do get attracted to. I think there's a more grounded approach, though, in terms of turning this negativity or potential negativity into something positive and fuel for change. Because I guess too, if there wasn't a crisis, if everything was putting along just as we needed it to, what would be the friction that would cause the change, the maturity, the evolution in our own consciousness? So maybe, and that goes back to seeing that there's, what do we call that? Meaning in the madness. Yeah, that maybe there's something bigger at play here too, that is on a collective level amongst all of us as souls, but and the body of the earth, in some sort of agreement together. You know, if you want to think of it that way, that we're all on a journey of evolution, and we're sharing it. And how do we respond to or use what's being offered in terms of crisis to create the change we need in ourselves and in globally?
Yes, absolutely. I really agree, and I feel like in the last however many thousands of years, as we've industrialized and advanced as civilizations, and really waged an all-out war in a lot of countries on the purity and earth-based principles of indigenous cultures, there has been an attempt by a style of consciousness, if you will, to take dominion over the earth, to actually use her for not sustainable reasons. And what's happening now, I believe, this crisis, I think it's the earth kicking back and actually asking directly, each of you, every single one of us, to wake up and to actually act, to care for her, to make the changes that need to be made, and to allow her to regain her sovereignty over her creation through us, not in despite of us, but through us. And that is how this global transformation is our transformation. And that's a very positive opportunity if we choose to take it. You hear lots of Indigenous communities and mystics talk about there being many attempts at humans having sustainable civilizations and many, many failures. And here we are again. Are we on the brink of a failure, or are we going to have a breakthrough, a breakthrough, where we actually come up with a way that all of us in the modern world, with all the modern things that are now in existence in creation, to live in a sustainable way and in a positive way in relationship to the earth. It's good stuff. More questions.
Or comments or feelings.
Yes, we have to stop doing all the talking. We're talking too much. Chelsea?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, Chelsea.
Hi. So my question was around the notion of like when you find your purpose, what feels like your vision from that silent place. And I feel I've just been journeying through becoming more clear on that and accepting my mission, but I still struggle with the notion of accepting that it doesn't look like the extreme activism, you know, the actual acting change politically on a big level. And while I have moments of just like, okay, cool, that's not my mission, I just wanted to hear you guys maybe speak on how to accept and surrender to that. And yeah, just that journey of finding peace in your own little mission.
Yeah.
Can I just feed that back to you to make sure I'm clear on what you're asking? That you've done some work recently on clarifying your vision, and it's been revealed to you that it's not in the style or the extreme nature that you thought it would be in terms of activism, etc. And the question is around how to kind of reconcile that with just what is. Is that right?
Yeah, because it still causes me a lot of distress and anxiety about not being able to do all the things, you know, like say my mission is more on that psychological, like through music and through doing my psychotherapy sessions, and it stresses me to not be able to act. So yeah, how to navigate that.
How do you know that that the work that you're offering doesn't have as powerful or if not more powerful concentric ring, so influence collectively, than that other direct action? I'm just wondering what you're basing your judgment on.
Yeah. I do feel it has concentric rings, and I can feel the ripples of it, but it's almost as if it's more of an egoic thing that wants to be that political activist. And so that's just my mental battle. It's not necessarily my one being can do more in that place and that, but it's just that I think it's more an egoic thing, rather than an actual, yeah.
There is a process. Yeah. There's a process to surrendering deeper and deeper to vision, because what you realize is that you're not directing the ship, or not completely at least, and that vision is some sense of an external, there's a bigger picture at play that you're responding to, and we might have desires and ideas that we want to head in one direction, but if we truly surrender to, and I guess it also relates to cultivating over and over a sense of your own internal rightness or radar around what feels right in terms of what direction to head in, which we're going to talk a little bit about in a little bit. But I guess what I'm getting at is that the process of surrender is a process, and there's layers to that, and it does take a while to let go of our intellectual ideas of where we needed to be or who we needed to be in the world, and truly just come home to who we are. And when we do come home to who we truly are, that's where we're most aligned out. We're plugged into the most power because there's such a beautiful alignment. Like with your gifts that you bring, that's your alignment. That's when you're at your most powerful. Maybe not on a street corner with a placard, you know, banging up and down.
Or locking on at the Adani coal mine.
Yeah.
But still just as
Yeah.
It's a really interesting question.
It almost activates me more the more I surrender to not doing that, the more it fills me with passion to do exactly what I feel I'm here to do. And as opposed to spreading myself thin, it's like, let me just put everything into that. But yeah, that's
absolutely. And there's an element there when I heard you talking about the relationship between that East and the awakening and that which is birthing within you, and getting to know the power of that. And over time, as you work with that power within you that's birthing, trusting, and it takes time, and it does take commitment, and it does take repetitive action. And then more and more the ego and the personality is purified by that trust. And there's also a sense then that when we come into the West, we're more easily able to let go of what needs to be transferred, what needs to be transformed into, I guess, the darkness of the night or the death, and what has to be let go of. And so there's an element there, I think, of just, like Sam was saying, it's a process, and there is a purification there. The more we fall in and trust and embody the fullness of your own unique personal power, and have that be the only guiding rightness that you really follow, there's a letting go of external, I should have been this, or people think of me like this, or, you know, those things over time disappear, and you just drop in and you are who you are, and that's enough. And that's enough. And there's that sense of just backing that 100% no matter what.
Can I ask one more little piece around that? I think it's this idea of hypocrisy that comes with it. It's like, who am I to be sharing and talking through music or through, you know, an emotional level, if I'm not doing something that's also practical? Not that I'm not in my personal world, but I think there's this stunting that happens when I feel like a hypocrite in that sense. But that's still a part of, I think, just the surrendering. But yeah.
And is that your own internal judgments of yourself and your own internal criticism, or is there a truth to that? And that's the clarification. The more you work with the unfolding of your personal power, and the more you commit to tending to that and cultivating that, the clearer you'll be on just from your own internal rightness. And we're going to talk about internal rightness, whether that's just your mind and you know, that internal critical voice that's the personal story that needs to be worked on, or whether there's a truth to it. And we all have to do that these days. You know, we all have to say to ourselves, well, are we really living in alignment? Are we being hypocritical? Are we saying we're being environmentally sustainable, but we're not, you know, and the sort of times we're in are going to shine a light in every single little crevice in terms of the integrity with which we can live. And that's a beautiful, powerful process to be in. But, you know, it's important, I think, to recognize we all have this very, very powerful internal critic that often blocks us from allowing the power of the four directions to bring us into being powerful change agents. And the mind, in the way that it activates now, has been fueled by the Industrial Revolution and the technological advancements and the lack of Indigenous connectivity to wisdom like that we carry in our culture now. And so it's important to examine that and to ask yourself, you know, how much of it is true and real, but how much of it is possibly something that needs to be left in the West so you can truly activate your power.
Yeah.
That's okay. She's muted herself.
Oh, I said thank you. That helps a lot.
Yeah. And I wanted to say one final thing on that, when we put measuring sticks on things like we should be doing more or we should be doing it in this sort of style, I think it really gets us off track too, because whether we're doing more than someone else or I think we all have our unique rightness and where we plug into the overarching picture. And even the monk that's sitting in the cave just anchoring a certain type of silence and stillness, but is not really doing anything, is doing a lot, I think. And so just measuring against more active or less active roles is often a little misplaced. So I think it all comes back to rightness, and you're the only one that knows that.
Yeah. Awesome. Would anyone else like to ask a question or make a comment? Hey, Tyler.
Hey, Kate. Hey, Sam. I just wanted to say, like, I guess this feels very much in line with where I'm at right now, and just stepping into it more and more and surrendering it. But where I'm getting stuck is the fact that I'm flying, to be honest with you. I'm flying in an airplane, and like that guilt of flying is a big part of what's really holding me, and like feeling like this is my inner rightness to go to these places at this moment and to do this work, but getting in an airplane, there's so much guilt, to be honest, that keeps coming up that I'm struggling with. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the I can really understand that and hear that, and I think it's that sense of that you know, when you're conscious, you know that aeroplane travel creates huge pollutants in the world today, and can be can be seen as quite a negative environmental. Is that what you're meaning?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel like this is the right thing I need to be doing right now, but also at the same time, I feel like it's going in the opposite direction in other ways.
Can I maybe say something to that?
Please, because Martina's just flown to Germany from Australia, so she knows. Yeah.
I can absolutely hear you, Tyler. And I had exactly the same thing. I was like, here I am, you know, like talking about this and, you know, trying to minimize the impact on the earth I have. But then every 2 years, I fly to Germany because my family lives in Germany. And so that really, really got me as well. But then I came to a point where I was like, right, like, how am I going to do this? Am I going to sacrifice seeing my family for the bigger picture? Or is there something where I can still fly to Germany, but still do something good for the earth? And then people were saying, oh, well, you can offset the emissions. I'm going like, yeah, but how can I trust that whoever I pay, that they actually plant the trees and that they're alive? And then all of a sudden I thought, no, hang on, why should I pay someone else to plant the trees? How about I buy the trees and I plant them? So then I got on the internet, I worked out what the emissions are, how many trees my family has to plant. And then just before we went to Australia, actually, we went to a tree planting. I was talking to people there, and I found this woman who has 300 acres, which she wants to, you know, like plant trees on. And I'm going like, great, when I come back, we plant all these trees on your land together because I don't have a piece of land we are renting. And so it's like, oh, well, I actually can do something and I can plant the trees and I can make sure that they're all right, because I can absolutely hear you. That is something that really gets me every single time. This is madness, but we are part of the modern world and I haven't invented this. You know what I mean? Like, we are still within the system. And so, I just came to the point where I thought, well, maybe that's how I can deal with that particular situation.
Yeah. No, I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Have to face on a daily level and on a daily basis. And I remember when I first met Kate, she was really against having a car and she was really proud of not owning a car. And she was trying to keep that up for a little while, and we were together. And I remember the day that she realized that to do the work that we're doing, to actually spread the word that we're trying to spread and do the word that we're really activating us, that she needed a car. And so they're the little things that we compromise. And I think there's a few things going on at once. I think there's that physical level of reality where when planes fly, they emit emissions, and that does pollute the atmosphere and the environment. Yes, that's real. But also at the same time, you're on a bigger journey, Tyler. You're on a plane heading somewhere for some purpose that I imagine is very closely aligned with your heart. Otherwise, you wouldn't be heading there. And so there's a few things going on. I think we need to not be caught and sort of trapped in like a prison of, I don't know, guilt and weighing things up all the time. We need to do the work. And I think the real power that is available to us is in the transformation of consciousness, as well as like the physical level good choices. I think there's something at play that's much bigger than just the physical cause and effect that we see. And I think we need to also make sure we're maintaining our commitment to that transformation as well, which I imagine you are, but it's just an interesting point.
I agree. It reminded me, Tyler, of it's true. I was so environmentally conscious when I was a teenager and a young adult that I was just dead set that the whole world was going to start to use bikes and public transport again. And I actually was so embedded in that belief that that was the way the world was going, that I didn't realize for years that I was actually going completely against the mainstream, until I did suddenly realize I couldn't get places because I didn't have a car, and I needed to get places to actually do what we were doing. And so yes, and it's I just see you in this in a major way. I get it. But I love Martina's suggestion of and what Martina's suggestion to me speaks of is that there is always a creative solution. And Sam was saying we don't need to be, captive to guilt if we can come up with positive solutions. And this is what activating yourself as a change agent really means in the day-to-day. I think it's amazing that Martina's gone and planted all these trees to offset her carbon footprint. The pollution, it's fabulous. And that's the very thing that we need to all be looking at. How can we have our own unique solutions that make us feel good in our body again about the way we're living in the world? And that will close the gap between the destructive elements of the modern culture we're in and the regenerative possibilities, because there's so many things that we could be doing collectively. It's just a matter of us actually doing it. So
yeah, I feel like I keep like tunnel visioning on like these practical sort of things, when in reality, if I look around at the things I've done on this trip, like I've held several workshops where I have held that space for people, and it's been incredible to see that change in people's eyes, and like that's made it all worth it. I think I think we sometimes forget, like we're aware of the bubble in Australia, but when you leave it, it just pops so incredibly that you just, it's quite intense sometimes coming to countries where things aren't as aware, and you think we're making all this progress while it's just, it's everything's just really shown in your face, and it's, quite intense. But I think it's just constantly being reminded of coming back through that four directions, and back to my vision essentially.
Absolutely. You're talking about your collective legacy too, and lots of inputs go into that. You know, Martina's flying on a plane, and she's also planting trees. I think if we could only ever do and use means that were environmentally friendly, you wouldn't be able to fulfill your vision in the life that we have today and the systems that are set up. And so I think in terms of making peace in your heart with your collective legacy, looking at the whole, the total, and what are you doing over there? And it sounds like, to me, like there's a lot of positive work being done, and it sounds like you're saying it's worth it. And so I think that just so you can bring positivity to yourself and be proud of how you're showing up in the world, because I can see you thinking about what's the collective legacy of that trip. that I'm doing, and what's the positivity that came out of it. And yes, planes aren't ideal, they're not, but what's the positivity?
Thank you, guys.
Tyler, so nice to see you. Wow.
So good to see you guys. Much love.
Can I say something about that? Can you hear me?
All right. Hey, Caitlin.
Hey, Caitlin.
Hi. Yeah, Tyler, I hear you with the guilt. I feel that a lot, and I have felt it a lot in the past, and I'm getting much better at not beating myself up every time I buy something in plastic or go traveling or do something that might be, you know, seemingly selfish. Or firstly, we have to look after number one, which is like us and our mental health, and that's been a big thing for me. We can't do the work that we want to do and help people and help the environment if we're, you know, just in our rooms, just rocking back and forward. You know, like, we have to look after ourselves first and our mental health. And now that I've realized that and made that a priority, you can't feel guilty all the time for everything. No one is perfect. So you have to realize that no one is perfect. No one can be, you know, plastic free. No one can be this perfect human, you know. So, and as Sam said, we can't just live in the bush and be effective in this modern world. We have to sit somewhere in the middle. And yeah, I guess that's what this journey is all about, and especially for me. So yeah, I feel that as well with the guilt, but look after yourself first, I think.
Very powerful. I agree,
Nice words.
Caitlin.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've tried living in the bush and being effective. And I agree with you, Caitlin, that I think, look, this isn't true for everybody, but I do feel that this is true for a lot of humans who are magnetized to the nature philosophy community and the nature connection rewilding community that's really growing in Australia and is big all over the world, that we're warriors, really, and that the time that we spend in deep immersion with the natural world and, you know, expressing in our body-based interactions the love that we have for nature, that's actually wisdom, caring energy that people need to be able to contact when we go back out into the modern world where there is more of a sense of unconsciousness. Sorry, Caitlin, I might need to mute you because I think there's a background thing there. Sorry. You know, and that's another thing to think about, is that is it about all of us just sort of living in these perfect ways and having the perfect choices and never feeling any guilt and never feeling a sense of that we're doing anything wrong? Or are you really here to get your hands dirty and to actually, you know, do you actually play a role in terms of getting into the belly of the beast, so to speak, and having the strength within you that is sourced from the depth of your connection with the earth and the depth of your love of the earth, that then fuels your vision and fuels the power that you can offer other people who are seeking the very thing you have, but they're not going to necessarily just come to you in your pristine world. They're out there in the modern world. And so we're called, a lot of us are called to do the sort of thing you're doing, Tyler, and travel into places where there just isn't a lot of the same sense of consciousness. And we're there to wake people up and there to help this transformation not be a crisis, but actually be an opportunity for collectively humankind to wake up to a better future. And so it's just another interesting element to think about when that guilt comes up, to put it in perspective. Oh, a little mouse just ran across behind us. That's great. We're just going to talk for a little bit longer because we also wanted to offer the three, well, I guess most powerful or body-based effective techniques that we've used that have helped us to stay centered and on point with our spiritual tasks. So we just might open the floor again if anyone else felt moved to communicate anything or share anything. Feel free to hop on and unmute yourself now.
Hey guys, it's Heath here. Greetings,
Hi,
everybody.
Heath. Hey.
So it's a little bit. It was 6:30 up here, and I checked the time, so I'm running an hour behind. So sorry about that.
That's all right.
I joined late.
All good. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you guys again. I just wanted to share something. I just came out of an experience in Byron Bay. Mid-July, I ended up at a protest camp down there, protecting swampland. It was held by Extinction Rebellion. And I didn't really realize what I was getting myself into, but a couple of months in, I ended up as one of the remaining and sort of like leadership in this leadership role with that. And it felt empowering at the time, fighting for something with a group of people, humans. But it was very draining. It was very draining my energy. I got sick. I got sick and had this sickness for weeks. And so did a lot of other people in the camp. One of the biggest issues that was really stopping the movement and the progression of actual positive action was interpersonal dramas and problems between people in the group. The space that I was in was highly emotional, and it felt like there was a real ungroundedness between everyone there. And ultimately it felt like it was driven on fear. That's what it felt like. The camp was driven on fear that, you know, we're struggling to survive. We're really, you know, we're about to all get out, you know, we're about to walk into the slaughter. And I came out of there and I went on I'd been on a 10-day water fast in the bush. And I didn't realize how far away from my center it had pulled me. And what I sort of am aware of now, and I'm not going back into one of these protests again, I'll tell you that, because what I feel like is that our awareness is creating our reality. Whatever we're focusing on, that's what is the reality that's being created, right? And so I was perpetuating, while I was a part of that, I was perpetuating a reality of fear, which is no different from what is holding up the current matrix at the moment. And so yeah, I'm just gonna, what I feel like is, you know, coming back into however my path looks and what feels right from inside of me, and really not being swayed into these things. And I probably wouldn't have seen it the same had I not actually experienced the months in that camp. Like, I would still feel like I'm kind of, you know, I did have an urge before to go in and see what it was all about. And now I'm really aware that it's not my thing. But I respect that maybe it is for some people, but I guess at the end, like, there was something that rung true for me, which Tom Brown shared, and that's that the evolution or revolution has got to be spiritual. It has to come from that place and that plane. And yeah, it's like, if this, you know, if these mobs, this protesting group, you know, does take over the government and there's this new power in charge, then I still feel like there's going to be a hell of a lot of broken people holding positions of power. And yeah, so I'm not into it at all. And yeah, I'm just more about really following, you know, what's in my heart. I think there's a bigger picture being played out. And if Mother Earth does need to purge or clear the disease, you know, the parasites of us human beings, because of what's taking place, then I can fully accept that and own that. And, you know, if some cataclysmic event were to happen, at least I've lived from my heart for the rest of my life, in my own truth, and not been drawn or dragged into some negative fear-based program with a bunch of other people that I didn't even, I guess that sort of feels like what I wanted to share.
Thanks, Heath. That is really powerful. It's really good to hear your experience and particularly your take on that, because I also relate to that in my own belief system. And I really respect groups that are having a go, for sure. But I think on a higher plane level, Malcolm, one of Tom's mates, made a really good quote one time, and he was referring to the big protests that were happening during the Vietnam War period, and they were pretty violent and all that kind of thing. And he used to say that fighting for peace was like fucking for chastity, if you know what I mean. So fighting against that which you don't, that which you don't want is like, you know, it's sort of this. It's the same game, you know. Fighting for peace is like fucking for chastity. It's like you're not getting that. It's actually, in sometimes it's feeding into that same whirlpool of energy that is driving the very destruction that you are against. And it's in a way, either consciously or unconsciously, those organisations and individuals are complicit in that game. You're choosing to dance that drama together. So I think there are, I'm not taking anything away from groups that are direct action groups, but I'm saying that there is an element to that type of dynamic that does stay at a certain level. And I think the greater power is in what a lot of us have already spoken about tonight in that east direction, around really doing our own personal work and showing up in our life in the sense of what we're for, not what we're against. And if we're do that, we all those conflicts that you're talking about tomorrow, if we all showed up tomorrow morning completely embodied in what we're for and using our own vision, our own personal medicinal gifts to bring what we're for to the world, all those things I think would disappear as conflicts. So, you know, I just wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. And I feel like what you're alluding to too, Heath, or not really alluding to, but actually really directly speaking towards, is the power of our consciousness. And it is a powerful, powerful thing. And I agree, it's often the story that we're carrying, the wounding that we're carrying, the unresolved, undigested life experiences that we carry can magnetize us to places where there's crisis, places where there's negativity, places where there is that sense of there being a fight, but there's no end to the fight. It's just this this place where we can feel depleted and more hopeless and helpless. And where we agree with you completely. I mean, it sounds like you've had an experience that is the very heart of what we're talking about tonight, which is how to turn that despair and that sense of hopelessness and that dark sort of fight that we can get caught within, and the helplessness in that, into fuel for the transformational growth and into a clearer idea of what truly is your spiritual task. Why are you really here? And how can you, in a powerful way, become a change agent so that you can actually offer that as a whole human? So as a human that's not coming from a place of there being like a survival element where your body is caught in fight and flight and there's a lot of negativity that's being expressed, but instead a hopeful future and possibilities for a really, you know, positive future, particularly because we have kids. I resonate to people who have a message of hope, because I want my children to grow up in a world where there is hope, where there is a positivity. But I agree as well with Sam that I actually really respect different communities all around the world who are participating in direct action. I understand that sometimes that doesn't work well because we're humans and we get all bound up with each other and triggered, and you know, some direct action is more effective than others, but I still really respect that people are called into that as an experience. A lot of times we've had a lot of people come through our programs spent from direct action, and you know, on the Sea Shepherd, for example, and just needing to recover from the crisis, the emotional and spiritual and physical crisis that's created in their life for many, many months, if not years, because they've put themselves literally into what is a war zone. You know, and that can be very, very taxing on our system. And we do believe that that's obviously a very valid pathway, but that there's another way forward as well, where we're not driven by fear and not needing to act in that way. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's great to hear from you, Heath.
Yeah, likewise.
So that's where you've been.
Yeah, I was quite there for a while.
Oh, we can't hear you. You've gone really quiet all of a sudden.
Hello, is that?
That's much
Can you
better.
hear me now?
Better. Yeah. You were in the belly of the other beast.
Yeah, I guess so. I definitely, there was a beast in my belly as well. So
That's it. Yeah.
I guess there was a hypocrisy that lied inside of me when I was there as well. And this is the big piece that, the last piece of the puzzle for me that just recently dropped in was, there was a discord within my own system where I was actually poisoning myself, you know, still, there was things that still had their claws in my consciousness, things like nicotine, caffeine, and these are the things that I used, I feel, to control us in a sense that, you know, like the greatest.
Oh, we've lost him.
Lost Keith.
Keith will be back. He's obviously got a bit of a dodgy connection, but it's he's back already.
Yeah, don't let me go.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Here he is.
Here he is.
Go ahead, Heath.
You right, Heath?
Yeah,
Hang on, we can't hear you.
Hello.
There you go.
Better, that's
I can hear
better.
you.
Okay. I'm inside now.
Yeah.
So there was a hypocrisy in my system, and that was that, there was these little hooks the system had in me, the evilness of the system. And really, if I'm protecting and loving Mother Earth, I'm loving and protecting my body. But if I'm stressed out to the point emotionally where I'm smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, or trying to through caffeine and these sorts of things, then the system's got its hooks in me. And all I'm saying is, like, what I truly believe is one of the best ways for us to free ourselves in the world of evil is just to come back to the body and maintain good health and be aware of the things we're doing to ourselves, because I was kind of like projecting, you know, that there was all this pain and suffering going on, but I was causing it to myself as well. And now, it's a lot clearer to me now that, you know, that there is other ways to fight the evil in the world, or to, do our part. And for me, it's health in the body.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing your perspectives, guys, as well on that.
No worries.
Thanks, Heath.
Thanks, Heath. It's
Much
great
love.
to hear from you. Yeah, lots of love.
Yeah.
Oh, well, look, what we might do, because we're getting close to the 2-hour mark, we might just move on to the 3 body-based strategies. They're super simple.
Then we could take more questions after that. If a few more, if there's burning questions, we can take them
Definitely.
after that. But so let's just get these.
Just so everybody's not, if anyone's waiting for those, we can get those done and then talk about them too if we need to. But these, I think exactly what Heath just said, look after the body. And, you know, the truth that we know and we understand is that silence and soul connection of the South is within your body. It's not just in a direction marker. You know, the powers of the directions are archetypal ancestor spirits that literally guide the transformation of all of creation and all of the known creation that we participate in anyway. And so the power of the South and that silence and that soul level connection is found within your own body. And so that also is the place where we're most powerfully connected to the earth and to her consciousness as well. And so this sense of coming home into the body is going to be fundamental to the sort of effective techniques that we've always used and that we've heard many other people talk about as well, that help to bring clarity, that help to bring that sense of honest, authentic truth that we need to see, you know, about our own personalities as we travel all the way from the east to the west and then into direct action as well. And it's often a power source that allows us to be strong enough to even act in a powerful way in the north anyway. So yeah, so the first one, Sam, you're going to do it. It's all about unplugging, really, from the world.
Well, it's about unplugging, but it's also about plugging in. I'm calling the first one plugging into nature. So yes, before you do that, you can unplug from your digital devices and plug into nature. In the same way, like if we plug electrical devices into a power point to give them a recharge or to give them power and life, our bodies are perfectly adapted to and aligned with nature's forces and energies. And so we can plug ourselves into nature by doing really simple things like just barefoot walking through a forest. We can do some sunbathing, you know, in the early morning sun when it's not dangerous, but just with even stripping off and getting naked out on the lawn in some private spot, you know, letting the sun hit your body and letting that recharge you and bring life to you. There's this whole concept now of forest bathing, just being immersed in any sort of forest, a rainforest, eucalypt forest, with all of its beauty surrounding you is a completely healthy thing to do. Going bird watching, if you're into birds, you know, it's like building ropes of connection with different parts of our environment, actually, you know, heal us and allow us to feel aligned. Deep belly breathing, you know, coming into the body and just breathing nice, clean air is an amazing one. What else did I have?
Well, I just totally agree. What you
ocean swims.
Oh, ocean.
Yeah, my big one's just going for a surf, and I don't know what it is. I can't understand it or explain it, but just being in the ocean for more than an hour is some sort of regenerative, like magic pill for me. So ocean swims, just being exposed to a waterfall is really powerful. So super simple, but it's definitely a technique, is to plug yourself into nature. So consciously take a barefoot walk, belly breathe, you know, observe what's around you in the birds and the animals, you know, play in the waterfall, the ocean, whatever part of nature you can get your hands on. Treat yourself like a natural organic device and just plug in to the earth mama.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that takes commitment, and it also takes a sense of dedication to your own self-care. It's easy to get so caught up in the chaos and the craziness of our modern day lives that we know that there's a simple solution to having our bodies come out of fight and flight and the tension that we're in and that we're experiencing as we meet this crisis all the time, and we have these big emotional triggers get you know, taken up in our bodies. But the simple solution is often not to need to do anything in that realm, but to allow ourselves to cultivate our consistent, deepening connection to nature herself. And for you, in your own unique way, in your own unique rightness, to unplug from the modern world where all of the crisis is happening in the modern day, and instead find that sense of the eternal and the unchanging through your own body-based connection to the natural world. And that is a powerful thing. That is a centering force. And it is one of the ways that we have both managed in our life to have a very powerful, cultivated, it doesn't just happen, you have to cultivate a powerful center and to maintain it as well. You have to cultivate the maintenance as well. But then when these big waves of emotional material and these big concentric rings of chaos come from different communities all over the world, you have a powerful anchor that's literally living inside you as a connective consciousness that protects you and that keeps you centered. So we really highly recommend asking yourself, leaving this call, saying, well, what's my thing? Sam's is in the ocean, off to do his surfing. But what's yours? You know, what's your way that you know that you can pretend you're an iPhone device, but plug into the motherboard of nature and genuinely recharge your batteries. And then you have to take action on that and commit to doing it. Like, you know, these things, they're great in theory, but if you can't commit and make it happen on a regular basis, then it won't happen. So what's yours? And we'd love to know. Email us, you know, and let us know if you've been doing that and what it is. We love to stay in touch around all of this with each of you. So that's one thing. It's super simple, but it's actually really powerful, and it's where we all find that sense of beautiful home that sustains us. The other thing that I wanted to mention, the second technique, before Sam talks about the third technique, is when it's all about feeling emotion. So it's just my invitation to you to think about that when the emotions get triggered around the environmental crisis and the despair, when you start to feel those waves of emotional content build up, please, please, please don't try to resist them. My greatest suggestion to you would be to work out how to stay in your body, ground yourself with deep belly breathing so that you have your parasympathetic flight, not fight and flight, but the parasympathetic nervous system operated, which is going to tell you that you're safe and that you're not under any threat. And then from that place of really allowing yourself to breathe deeply and being really aware of your body, feel the sensations of those intense emotions as much as you possibly can, and work through the process of literally riding through the transformational waves that come through the emotional body as these crises start to take hold. When my greatest suggestion around this technique comes from when we try to hold it down, when we I guess in a sense, when we let that wave take us like this, but we don't have a strong anchor in terms of staying in the body and staying with a deep and sustained belly breath, then it can feel like those waves pick us up and then they can just carry us away, and the fear can take hold, the anxiety can take hold, and we lose sovereignty in our own bodies, and we lose it to this external power that is this crisis that is happening and that we're calling a crisis, but is really a global transformation. And so I really want to just suggest that that second technique is a very powerful one to work on allowing yourself and giving yourself the permission to feel as fully as you possibly can the depth of your despair, the depth of the reality of this crisis, but to do it in a way where you don't lose track of your physical body, you don't lose track of deep belly breathing, so you stay out of fight and flight, and allow yourself to weather the storm of the intense emotional waves. And what I'm going to suggest will happen if you can cultivate that style of technique is that you will empower the connection in your body to that central anchor that is the truth of your soul self. And that is a much more powerful force than any wave that any civilization has ever managed to trigger in the emotional bodies of humans. And that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at the modern day civilization creating waves in the emotional ocean, but they are only for now because they are always changing. And the one true source that is eternal and that is unchanging and that will be an anchor for your consciousness in life is in the south. And it's in that soul-based, silent-based connection within your own body. And that sort of technique will allow you to find that for yourself, and is connected very much to this next point, the third technique that we wanted to offer you, that we have found to be very, very effective in dealing with crisis and despair.
Yeah, the third one is cultivating a sense of body-based guidance. We could also call this cultivating your own sense of your own inner vision. And so what we're doing is turning away from the mind as a guiding force with all its stories and its narratives and its doubts and its projection and a lot of confusion in the mind, and turning away from the mind as our guiding principle and going to the body as a radar of rightness. Like, what feels right for me and in what way do I need to move forward? So abandoning the mind as the ultimate superior guiding force and coming into the body. And like I said, we can call that inner vision. You could call that gut instinct. You could call it your own sense of rightness. But just essentially cultivating your body as a sensitive radar for what's right for you. And now this doesn't happen straight away all the time. It can be a process to craft that and to rebound off your body over and over again until you can get what is often a subtle feeling around which way to go, but using the body as your guide and trusting the body's intelligence and trusting its knowing about which way to move forward over and over again will build this what is really essentially a receptive function as something that's quite pointed, accurate and reliable too, much more than the head and the mind, I would suggest. So that's the third one, actually cultivating your body as a guiding tool for you.
And everybody might be thinking, well, how do you cultivate it? I tell you right now, use it. Start actively use it, because you cultivate it by making mistakes or having successes in learning, well, was that it? And did that take me in the right direction? And it can be something as simple as, should I pack that extra jumper that I need to take on this camping trip I'm going on? Or what is the next best step for me in my spiritual journey? And all of those things, when they're really pure and really right for you, are coming from your body, because inside your body, it houses your soul, which houses your rightness, not the rightness that your parents told you about or that our culture tells us about, but your truth. And that's what we're really here to start to live, I believe, as well. I mean, gosh, I think that's a huge component of what this crisis and transformation is all about, aligning our bodies to that sense of rightness. And so cultivating it, focusing on it, asking yourself, well, how do I know when, from past experiences, when I'm on track? What is happening for me in my body that's telling me? And often as we refine the process, it's not feathers that fall out of the sky at particular moments, or birds that fly across, or big sort of aha moments outside of ourselves. Once it becomes very refined, just like Sam said, I experience it as a very, very subtle but powerful and absolute voice within me that I give way to, like all the time, not just regularly, but whenever I hear, it's not always active, but when it becomes active, I just give way and I just follow it and I trust it. And it always has led me not to places I know I'm going, but definitely to places that I've needed. I don't know if you've experienced that too.
And that can be a skill that's practiced, and that's why I mentioned that technique of rebounding. So you can ask your body questions like, do I need to do this? And see how you feel in your body, and you'll get a certain feeling of for yes or a certain feeling for no. And just doing that over and over does cultivate a sense of that more and more.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
great. That's it. Just 3 techniques. We could go on for longer, but we don't want to. We've almost hit the 2-hour mark. Thanks so much for sticking with us, guys. It's amazing. Oh, does anybody want to say anything or comments or questions or anything at all? We're really open to hearing from each of you, even though I know some of us have been quiet. Hey, Gemma.
Hello. Hi. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I missed the the time thing as well, so missed ya. Yeah, just jumping in there. I just struggle, like, you know, I see the value in, like, you know, using your own guidance system with oh yeah, it feels good with, you know, some of us are more sensitive than others. Can you hear me okay? I've got a funny voice at the moment. Bit croaky. And, you know, like, we all need our time out and our time connecting with nature. And then, like, where's the community, you know? Where's the community that's really heart-centered, nature-centered? You know, like, there's just so many distractions and everyone means well, but I just struggle with in amongst all of that, just the same as everyone else, you know, keeping a roof over your head and having enough time to cultivate community and do meaningful things while you're still finding your own way, in a way. So, like, you need to kind of, in my experience, like, withdraw to listen to that, but then also to create. It's so much more powerful with others. And I loved when you were just talking about empowering for the future. I was also like, where's the utopian visions? Like, those discussions, like, I'm such a, like, positive thinker sometimes, and I'm like, oh, where can I share this discussion? Like, we've got such cool technologies, and not that we need a great deal of it, but yeah, I think just coming together and you know, we're so in this survival mode that the dreaming of a new way, like, how can we figure out how to do it together? Yeah, and I think I've been in a lot of those places that people have discussed, and that I just really appreciate what everyone said that I've had a chance to listen to. But yeah, like, I just think that we draw in and we gain so much from that silence and stuff, and then we can come back together. And I guess, you know, it's just holding that faith and kind of being ready and dropping, like, I just drop things in occasionally with people, but it's, you know, just trying to plant those seeds in conversations, whether I'm just like, you know, going for a walk with someone, I'm like, oh, did you know this is a bush food or something? Like, it's just helping that relationship with nature or something. That's not talking about this grander utopian, I don't even know what it's supposed to look like, you know, but I guess just coming back to the meditation and that sort of thing, you can tune into what it would feel like with that wholeness in your heart and kind of those warm fuzzies and stuff like that. But then it's still like, oh, okay, well, how can we connect? And I don't know, that's just something that's been coming up for me from this talk. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we definitely need to juggle lots of different roles in life too, you know, and sometimes it is time to step back and take stock and not engage. Definitely, I feel that. But also there's something that you said that was beautiful, is just little steps around connection with people, like the bush food one. We see that as just very insignificant, but it may not be, you know. You don't know what, you know, when you're hitting a rock many times, you don't know which strike actually breaks the rock, because each time the rock's hit, it does cause minor fissures through it that you don't see it, they're invisible. And the final strike that we assume is the one that breaks the rock, but it wasn't the final strike. It was every strike of that rock that actually broke the rock. So yeah, I like that little bush food one with, you know, spreading connection in any way we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree. I wouldn't discount the power of that type. That to me is direct action. I'll be honest with you. I get that people want to, you know, get out there and fight, but that's fighting too. That's fighting for what's real and good about, you know, wake up. Someone sees someone like you, Emma, walking and alive to the environment and passionate, and so passionate that you're getting turned on about, oh my God, that's a bush food plant and this is so amazing. Literally your passion and the light that you are sharing is it's a very powerful thing, and it affects people. And just to remember to champion that within yourself and not to diminish or allow that to be diminished in any way. We all play a unique part in the transformation. Some of us are more out the front than others, but we're all playing an equally important part, and it's just beautiful to hear your connection to it. So.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
Yay. And come and see us at some point. When you started to talk about where's the community, I'm like, we've got one. I think, yeah, no, totally. We sort of found that the more we have cultivated that action around the, you know, what's right for us in terms of offering the work that we do, the more there has been a tribe, literally a tribe that has gathered around it. And there's just so many good humans that are in and around as volunteers and all manner of things, you know, in the programs we offer. It's a really beautiful thing.
We're so
lucky. It is possible, I guess I'm saying. Yeah,
and we see the best side of human nature, I think,
that's for sure.
Through what we do. Our faith in humans is so strong because the people that come to share space with us at the different programs that we run are just really beautiful humans and still in touch with the humanity. Yeah, totally. And the only other place I find that is in Arnhem Land, where people are still as deeply connected to their humanness and nature together. It's funny how those two go together. Yeah, that's the only other place I see that, where that's the dominant thing, that people are still embodying humanness, where you care about people and they're not captured by mental, I don't know, distractions of modern society, or they've not been swallowed by machine-based culture where we do get a little robotic. We do get a little bit just based on, producing stuff. So anyway.
Well, and I think that's good humans, and I think that's evident in whenever we take people from our community up to Arnhem Land, or community members from Arnhem Land come down and spend time with us down here, everyone loves everybody. Like we all love each other, and there's true love there. And so there is a really positive story to be told. And I think it's just so important that so we don't get, as almost like a wrap up, not to get stuck in the crisis being a place where we're being disempowered and where there's some sense of impending doom that's about to come and that there's no hope. We actually can create a different future from that. And if we can really activate ourselves in whatever way is right for you to become an ever-growing, more powerful change agent, then, you know, we have to then believe that we can create a sustainable future for many generations to come, where caretaking can become something that is, it's not even something we talk about, we live it. And I really do believe it's possible. So we just saw Tina for the first time.
Yeah,
Hello.
no, I was here at the beginning. I'll just say the quality of adaptability and resilience that comes from being able to stay close to nature and to be able to continue to seed that in all ways. You know, so talking about planting trees, anything that does increase our resilience and adaptability is going to be embedded in nature, I think. I don't think we get it anywhere else, really. And I think that that's why Indigenous cultures have shown that they can remain resilient even in the face of ongoing being pushed out of their places, etc. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
the earth, it's to me, it's a lot like staying close to the mother, because she literally is the source of our very existence. And so when we're close to her in our consciousness, in our hearts, and in our behaviors, then we're close to that strengthening point, that resilient point, that and we're more adaptable. I totally agree. So it's a very powerful point. Yeah.
Thank you. It was great.
Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. It was lovely. Louise is saying goodbye to everybody. She left a while ago, but she put a little chat thing there. Listen, thanks so much, guys. Stay in touch. We're obviously on all the social media things these days, and Facebook, Instagram, and email, info@naturephilosophy.com.au. Get in touch and let us know where you're up to with your journey. We'd always love to hear from everybody. So.
Yeah, and all power to your individual journeys as you ride the waves together of this complete activation of our own personal power too. I think this is the positive take home, that we can actually use this crisis as fuel for transformation personally, and then personal transformation becomes global transformation. So I really honour each of you as other souls, doing the best you can, and it's lovely to see your faces and hear your voices, and yeah, hopefully we'll connect again soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, guys. We're going to end the call now.
Big love.
Oh, hey, Chelsea. What did you?
I said it's been so good.
Ah, yay! That's what we want to hear.
I just got back from an island and just saw it literally the 3 minutes before it was happening, and I was like, oh. So
Yay! And there's so many people registered for the call but couldn't make it, so it's great because we'll all be sharing the discussion and the power of everything with them too. So. Yeah. Thanks, Chelsea. I'm glad you could make it. Wow.
Me too. Bye. Thank
Love everybody.
Yay.
Bye. Go well.